Well,
Yeah, kind of mind-blowing, right? We're talking about languages like Sanskrit, ancient stuff.
welcome back to the deep dive, everybody. Today we're going to explore something pretty wild. How ancient languages could totally shake up how efficient AI is.
Yeah, kind of mind-blowing, right? We're talking about languages like Sanskrit, ancient stuff being used to make cutting-edge AI cheaper and faster. Forget the latest silicon for a second. This is about the power of language itself.
I know, right? It's like suddenly the past is the key to the future. But to really get into this, we have to talk about how AI processes language right now. It all comes down to these units called tokens.
Tokens, yeah, they're like the building blocks of language for AI. But the more tokens you have, the more computing power you need, and that gets expensive really fast.
Exactly, that's the bottleneck.
Hmm.
But there's this new study out of London, and it talks about these emergent symbolic markers. Basically, it's like AI is figuring out its own shorthand, and sometimes it borrows from other languages to do it.
And get this, they found that using these markers, they could make those token sequences way shorter, like compress the information without losing any of the meaning. And they saw the biggest potential with ancient languages.
So they tested this out, right? They compared standard US English, which they figure would need around 1,000 tokens for a specific task, to systems using these new markers. And what did they find?
Well, Sanskrit, that ancient Indian language, managed to cut down the number of tokens by up to 30%. And Chinese did even a bit better than that.
30%. That's huge. Can you even imagine? So why is Sanskrit so good at this?
Well, it all comes down to its structure. This language is incredibly old, and its formal grammar was laid out by a guy named Panini way back around 400 BC. But its roots go even further back, and that long history has led to a language that's super dense and efficient.
So it's like every word, every grammatical rule is packing a ton of information.
Exactly. It's not just about saving a few letters here and there. This is about fundamentally changing how much computing power you need. Think of it like a symphony orchestra. If you can play the same piece of music with fewer instruments, you're going to need a smaller orchestra, a smaller concert hall, and you save a lot of money.
I love that analogy. So it's not just about saving a few words, it's about making the whole system more efficient from the ground up. But how did anyone even come up with this idea?
Well, it seems that when you make these large language models even bigger, they start to do some pretty unexpected things. They develop these emergent behaviors, stuff they weren't programmed to do. And one of those things is creating these super efficient symbolic markers, sometimes even borrowing from languages like Russian, Sanskrit, or Chinese.
It's like the AI is teaching itself new tricks, and it's turning to ancient languages for inspiration.
It really makes you wonder. There's this theory called dependency locality by Edward Gibson, which talks about how languages evolve to be easier for our brains to handle. So it makes sense that if a language like Sanskrit naturally evolved to be super efficient, AI could tap into that same efficiency.
Okay, so back to the study. Did they test this theory out?
Oh, yeah, they did some really interesting experiments. First, they compared English with these Russian markers and saw around a 25% reduction in tokens. But then they threw Sanskrit and Chinese into the mix, and that's when things got really interesting. Sanskrit hit that 30% mark, with Chinese doing even slightly better.
Wow, those are some really compelling results.
Absolutely. And this has massive implications for how we actually use AI in the real world, especially for those fancy transformer models. You see, the cost of running those models goes up really fast as the number of tokens increases. So a 30% reduction. That could mean saving 40% or more on computing costs. And for companies that process millions of tokens every single day, we're talking about saving tens of millions of dollars a year.
That is not small potatoes. But beyond the money, there's something so, I don't know, almost poetic about this whole thing, this incredibly ancient language. Sanskrit, with all its precision and complexity, could now be powering the future of technology. It's wild.
And it's catching the attention of some big names too, like Graham Hancock, the author. He's been talking about how Sanskrit's efficiency and depth could totally revolutionize how AI handles information.
It's fascinating, right? So is anyone actually trying to turn this research into something real world?
Yeah, there's a company called Trinity Helix, founded by this guy named Adam Wright. They're aiming to use this technology to bring AI to everyone. Like, imagine getting legal help powered by AI, all for something like $5 a month.
$5 a month. That's incredible. And what's their strategy for making that happen?
They basically want to be the foundation on which other companies build their AI. They're aiming to be the AI version of, say, ARM Holdings.
So by making the underlying technology more efficient, they can make AI cheaper and more accessible to everyone.
Exactly. It's not even that they're inventing something entirely new. It's more like they're rediscovering these ancient principles of efficiency that were already built into the structure of Sanskrit. It's genius, really.
Okay, so to recap, what are the key takeaways for our listeners?
All right, so we've got emergent symbolic compression, which is basically this idea that AI can learn to be way more efficient with language, and Sanskrit is a shining example of that, showing how much we can reduce those pesky tokens. Then there's this whole idea of historical resonance, this ancient language suddenly becoming super relevant to modern technology. And of course, the strategic advantage companies like Trinity Helix are jumping on this to cut costs and get ahead of the game. And then there's all the exciting next steps, figuring out how to scale this up and make it work in real-world applications.
This whole thing is pretty mind-blowing. I mean, we often think of progress as moving forward in a straight line, but this is a great example of how looking back at the past can lead to groundbreaking innovations. And the fact that everyone from tech experts to cultural figures like Graham Hancock are taking notice just shows you how big this could be.
It's definitely got people talking. And the next phase is all about taking this research to the next level. They're going to be running more experiments, refining the compression methods, and figuring out how to seamlessly integrate all of this into existing AI
That
systems.
sounds like a huge undertaking.
It is, but the potential rewards are massive. The companies that get on board with this early could see some pretty significant cost savings.
That's definitely something for investors to keep an eye on. So what's next for Trinity Helix?
Well, they're launching a whole new initiative focused on building a toolkit, basically, a module that other companies can license and use to make their own AI more efficient. They're really committed to democratizing AI, making it available to everyone.
That's exciting. So what can our listeners look forward to in terms of future updates?
Well, they're going to be publishing a comprehensive white paper that lays out all the technical details. And they're even talking about collaborating with Professor Edward Gibson himself, the guy behind the dependency locality theory. This could get really interesting.
So to wrap things up, it seems like this unexpected intersection of ancient wisdom and modern technology is poised to completely change the future of AI. Who would have thought that the secrets to building better AI would be hidden in plain sight in a language that's thousands of years old?
It just goes to show you that sometimes the most innovative solutions are found by looking back to the past. And that's something worth remembering as we continue to push the boundaries of what's possible with artificial intelligence.
Absolutely. So for all you listeners out there, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never underestimate the power of the past to shape the future. And with that, thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.